I'm here with Hope Wells today, and she is our vice chair with AMSA. Hi, Hope.
Hello.
And Hope will be sharing all her wonderful artwork with us today, and we will be exploring what went into her art and taking a closer look.
Well, my work is mixed media, so it's a bit of painting, but there's printmaking and drawing there. But fundamentally, materiality is very important to my work, particularly the silk that I do. I create portrait landscapes. So, portrait landscapes are phenological experiences, lived experiences. That's what that means.
Mm-hmm.
So you gain knowledge through adversities and, well, even in the happy times and the bad times, but you gain knowledge from one moment to another and you carry that forward. So that's what kind of goes into my work. My portrait landscapes, I start with a very abstract expressionist mark. So it's generally skin colored. That's why they're called portrait landscapes. These landscapes feel like they have this skin on them. So you have this human kind of attachment. But then I see scenes within that abstract mark, things and memories of places and kind of a collision of all these things. Well, this particularly series is adding another layer. So there was 11 paintings that were done like that. It was based on motherhood experience, so things that I learned as a child, how to be a mom, and then what I did and how I transferred knowledge actually as a mom. And then I took those 11 paintings and I've now divided them up into various sections. So there's one that was divided into 7. There was another that divided up into 4. The one that's from 7 that had 7 divisions, that one was in particular talking about the struggles that I went through with my daughter and getting her back home from a very abusive situation. She was already struggling with bipolar. She's been diagnosed since she was 18 years of age. So this extra trauma it caused so much more problems, just even getting her from one province to another, getting medical information changed, finding people to advocate her within the system as we had her transferred over. That's in predominantly most of these paintings that are in here behind me. You know, so I'm talking about a mother's experience of fighting through the health system and trying to get the help that we need. Abstract expressionist mark is a very intuitive way of working. It started off with Jackson Pollock, who else? Well, in the Canadian scene, Jack Bush, right? So it was a form of pouring paint, various different forms of pouring paint at various different rates and volumes. So some of them, claimed it would be more of a staining type of technique. There's others that the pour turned into more veils, so they were using physics also and caused various marks. Jackson Pollock, he took a stick and he used paint and tar, and he flung paint, right? That's all abstract expressionist marks. Mine in particular is it is poured, but it's poured into pre-drawn plastic. So it creates these big spots of voids within the pour as the painting dries. So that's how you end up having big physical spots like this, but then bare canvas in other areas. And then I also manipulate the platform. So none of my platforms that I worked with these paintings were ever made square. They were totally imperfect. I picked the most warped boards that you could possibly find. I was generally lifting and propping up the boards in various places. So I was using chemistry, I was using physics. So yeah, that very beginning, Mark, that's abstract expressionist. Just because paint is paint, it doesn't need to be used as paint. Look at all your materials that way, right? Even though it's steel, does it necessarily have to be used in the status quo prescribed way of using it?
So look at things differently.
Look at things differently, use things differently. I think that materiality will surprise you.
So, what materials are we using to do this piece of art, Coach?
Well, we're using a piece of rag paper. You can get this from the art stores. The reason I'm using rag, that means it has cotton in it, is because it can take the paint, and the paper itself won't warp too bad.
Yeah.
I do believe they have some in the dollar store. And then I also have some pink dollar store Art Deco paint.
Okay.
Just a fluid paint in my professional paintings. I use golden, but this, we're going to use this. We're going to show you how even the cheapest paint can make some really pretty art.
Put some water in there.
Yes. So I want to get the fluidity of the paint to be a little bit smoother and not as thick, because then this is what causes the paint to move. So I have pink, and now I'm going to do kind of this manganese type of blue, cyan. I don't know what you call it.
So how long do you mix the paint for? When do you feel like it's
Well,
the point?
you want all the chunky bits out of it.
Right.
So you want it fairly nice and smooth, because as your paint dries, those chunky bits will become dark bits. Okay, so let's start with the pink. I'm going to control it. I want to be very careful to not get too much. Spread it. We're going to spread this first paint around a little bit, just so that we can control how the two colors mix together. I always try and tell students, avoid making too specific of shapes, because you'll regret it. Those shapes don't go away, they stay right until the end. Okay, so we got that going. So now we're gonna do something a little different than the last one. We're gonna keep the paint a little bit more separated. Again, this is a way of controlling your flow. Whoop! And your rate. And I'm doing this because I want the blue and the pink to create kind of a horizon line here. So we're going to make that blue kind of draw all the way across. to go back the other way, but we don't want it to go down. We want it to stay at about the 2/3 mark in the picture plane, so that we get that nice horizon line. So now we have a lot of paint here. We need the blue. Always use a brand new brush for a new color when you're doing abstract expressionist work, because this is your way of avoiding the muds.
Well,
Not that you would get muds with this, because pink and blue gives us purple.
Good tip. It looks like you're using a dollar store brush there as well to push that paint around.
All my brushes are the cheapest.
Yeah.
I'm serious. In my professional studio, in my big abstract paintings, I buy $4 Walmart acrylic 2-inch great big huge brushes, flat and square. They're all the same. But I'm a different painter. I don't need different brushes to make different marks. I can make every mark out of...
Yeah. That's a beautiful purple coming through.
Right?
Yes.
I'm even surprised because usually dollar store paints, they're made of dye. So the color mixing can be a little unexpected. It's not as clear cut as it is with like pure pigment paints. But I'm liking the colors in this. This is kind of cool. Okay. But you have to kind of love paint materiality and how it flows, because you spend a lot of time just drawing with the colors and moving it.
Gotta be patient with it.
Yeah, super patient. But the other thing is like when you get your drawing to a certain state. Okay, so I really love what's happening here. I like this purple, so I really want to keep that. Well, the only way I can keep that is ensuring that this blue paint doesn't come back over here.
Right.
Because if it comes back over here, that purple is going to become a different color, right? So that's the other thing is that you gotta kind of pick and choose what you want to live. So right now, I really like the drawing. I want to keep this pink super fresh and all that. So we have a lot of excess paint here. It's puddling right here. And if we were to leave it, yeah, it would take about 6 to 8 hours to dry completely, but we don't want that. So I'm going to be prepared to edit this corner.
Yeah.
And just
So you're just
let
letting
it drip off.
letting it drip off the corner of the.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. That is
So we got that. We need another chart. New color. But essentially, this method is what William Turner, who's a very famous English painter from the 1800s, this is how he started all of his landscapes, but he did it with watercolor, right? And I like taking my students through this because you're making a landscape that's coming out of your intuition. You're not working off of a photo, and it becomes so much more genuine and real.
Yeah. Kind of gives you a freedom.
Yeah. Well, and it also gives you a freedom from life expectations, things that you learned in school, you know, how things are supposed to look, right?
Yeah.
So I want to brighten up the sky a bit since we're going to make this into a landscape. So I'm going to control my yellow because I don't want it to bleed out too much of our pink.
And you're using your paintbrush, right? To control
I'm using my paintbrush to control it. But obviously, look at our paint has another idea. It wants to spread down that way. The reason it wants to spread down that way is because the sizing has been already taken away with the pink. Sizing is a chemical that they put on top of the painting materials to give painters some extra resistance, or else paint would just like, oh my god, it would just seep into your surfaces. You would never be able to do abstract expressionist work, that's for sure, because your ground would just take everything. So sizing is quite important. I work with a lot of the sizing, and I've also been known to purchase, it's called rabbit glue, purchase rabbit glue, and actually put extra sizing in it so that my ground will resist the paint some more.
Okay.
But we're going to go with the fluidity of this.
These colors go so nicely together.
Right? But it's also the timing, right? If I had went and put this yellow in at the exact same time as I did with the pink and the blue, you'd end up having a really soupy mess of colors. But also, if you notice what's happening here, this hill looks like it's actually falling back into the background, right? Just the same way as our mountains do. When we're looking at them from a distance, the blue sky seems to be kind of veiling over them, and that's how you get that misty mountain look. Well, here you go. This is it. This is it. So it's by letting your first mark dry so that your second color actually layers and creates a separation, layered separation between colors, opposed to like what's here. This is color on color mixing. This is layer mixing.
Good to know. And that really does look like what happens with the mountain in the sky.
Yeah.
Where you get that.
But that's how you can do that, and it's just like, really, it took 2 minutes, and it was no Bob Ross fighting with a million brushes. Right?
And it's original.
And it's original, right? So I think it needs to dry a bit more, but I think when we let it dry, what I would end up doing is going in and painting some solid blue in here, because you should always have some nice areas of rest in your work.
So we can bring that there so everybody
There you
can
go.
see. That's very pretty.
You can even add more. You can add white into here and create those marks into more of ocean waves. You name it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Hope.
You're welcome.
See you guys next time. Hope you all enjoyed.